What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 77 of the Finale podcast. Today I'm joined by Yossef to recap week 16 of the NFL regular season and look ahead to week 17. Yossef, how you been?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Glad to be here. Happy holidays.
For sure, happy holidays, whatever you're celebrating, definitely. Looking forward to 2024 already. But before we get started with the topics, just wanted to look at the leaderboard to give everybody an update on where things stand at this moment. So, there's been a lot of, I guess, parity throughout the year. Things are changing constantly with this. So, where we stand right now after 16 weeks, in first place, we have Connor with 177 points. Tied for second place is Zach and Sidlad, but Zach finished up the points competition last week with his last opportunity being in week 16. So he's eliminated from the competition, no longer has any opportunities to earn points. Third place, it's Yossef with 150. And then in fourth place, Christian with 147. The same rules apply to Christian as they do Zach. Christian's also eliminated. Um, in fifth place, we have Tyler with 144 points, 3 points behind Christian. And then I'm in last place right now with 123. So two people eliminated so far. And we'll have potentially more this week. We'll see what happens. Obviously, I'd be needing more of a miracle. Yossef looks like he could, find himself in the lead after this week. We'll see what happens. But Yossef, my question for you is, how confident are you feeling going into this final week of picks for you?
Well, I just looked at the breakdown myself, and I was looking into it. It looks like there's 16 games on the plate today or this week, and in order to fill that gap between first place and second place, I need to go ahead and guess at least 10 of those correctly, and 10 would get me at 180 to win it. But there is a guy that's trailing me. I think you said 144. So if he gets 13 out of the 16 next week, he'll be able to tie me with 14 out of the 16. We'll be able to win. So I'm still looking to do better than 10, but I'm confident that I can get at least 10 out of 16.
For sure. Yeah. So there's Tyler with 144 points, and then there's Sidlad with 156 points. So they're still, obviously going to have their opportunity in week 18 to see what happens there. But yeah,
Yep.
Yosef, you're definitely in good opportunity to, take a little bit of a lead here if you have a good week. Um, but, before we go into the topics, just last question regarding the points competition. Just wanted to ask you, what do you think worked for you this year in terms of your pick strategy, and what do you think didn't work so much?
Yeah, I think what didn't work, we can go with there was a lot of upsets like last time we picked. And it was just a lot of close games. And I think what ultimately there was a lot of parity in the league this year. I don't think there were a couple of teams that were just consistently dominant until, unless you're talking about the Eagles in the beginning or even San Fran in the middle had a little hiccup. So there's just the parities, I think, what did us a little bit wrong. That made the competition a little bit harder this year. But ultimately, I think I was beneficial to have picked a couple weeks where I had less bye weeks. That definitely helped me out early. But overall, my strategy was going with my gut and picking teams that looking for matchups, not going based on the team itself and whether I liked the team or not, but strictly looking at the matchup and whether it was favorable or not on a week to week basis.
Mm, yeah, that's obviously a good strategy. It's gotten you in a good position. I would say for me, I think I picked a little bit too many upsets. It's always, nice to, find that upset pick because they happen every week. But,
Yeah.
when you're more often wrong than you are right, it's going to put you in a hole like at 123 points after,
Yeah.
five chances at this thing. So, obviously my first year, participating in it last year, I was kind of hosting it, seeing what you guys were doing. So, you live and you learn. But yeah, I think, what I've learned is that upset picks can only take you so far. I think
Yeah.
if I picked some more favorites in certain scenarios, maybe I'd be in a better position, but you never know. So uh yeah, I think I'm still confident, put some analysis into these final picks, so see where I end up. But the thing I can fight for sure is just not to be in last place because, nobody wants to be there at the end of it. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. Good luck to
Um
you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Same for you.
What did you think compared to watching us pick last year compared to being in participation this year? What caught you off guard, maybe?
Uh, well, I didn't want to stick with, teams that I liked. I didn't want to stick with a team that I feel like was constructed in a way that I feel like could win games. I tried to update my analysis of certain teams and have that inform my picks on a week-to-week basis, but like I said, would fall into a trap of sometimes picking the upsets based off how a team played last week or, a team has played in the last few games. But, it's a week to week league. So you can use that to your benefit, the information that you have, but also got to keep in mind what the matchup is and how these teams play against each other, given
Yeah.
their strengths and weaknesses. So I think that's kind of a trap I fell into is just, kind of overanalyzing certain statistics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, first topic of the day is Joe Flacco and the Browns. They're playing really well right now. Joe Flacco is on a streak of 300-yard games in a row. He's got them right in the thick of playoff contention. I believe they can clinch this week. Actually tonight against the Jets. But yeah, what do you make of what the Browns are doing right now with Flacco leading the way?
Before we get into the Cleveland Browns, this is just an interesting conversation. Just what happened in the offseason, looking at the matchup this week and the irony that lives between the Jets and the Browns, where Joe Flacco played a few games last year with the Jets, a similar type of constructed team where they're relying heavily on their defensive presence and asking their quarterback to be more of a game manager just to get them through games as their defense is the highlight of their team and their organization. Similar or unlike the Jets, the Browns decided to bring him on board and have him be in their quarterback room, where the Jets instead insisted bringing in Aaron Rodgers. Of course, you would take Aaron Rodgers over Joe Flacco, but instead of keeping Joe Flacco, who is more of that pocket quarterback and would be, I think, a better replacement in the absence of Aaron Rodgers, instead went to go with their young developing quarterback in Zach Wilson, and I think they have Bailey Zappi as well on the bench, and decided to go with that level of quarterback room, and frankly kicked Joe Flacco to the curb back onto his couch. And I think that's a decision that's kind of looming over this matchup this weekend, but we'll get to that matchup when we do our picks. Ultimately, like I said, the Browns' identity is their defense, and it's a dominant one of the best in the league, and if not the best in the league, coming through 16 weeks. And we've seen it week over week, them being able to dismantle teams that we thought were better than them even early in the season. I think they had a few good performances before we knew how good they really were going to be. Now looking at it, they're 10-5, sitting at the fifth seed in the AFC in playoff picture, and it's fantastic what they've been able to do and what Joe Flacco's been able to do with the absence of Deshaun Watson. I think there are pieces on the offensive side that could be utilized and leveraged, but ultimately this is above and beyond the expectations that they had for the offense outside when Deshaun Watson's not playing. So this is all like what would you call it? Just added benefit. When you have that caliber of defense, I think Joe Flacco is playing at a caliber where they're not scared of any team in the playoffs because they know their defense can match up with any offense in the AFC and in the league really. And now they have confidence in their quarterback getting the job done. Like you said, 300-yard games in a row is something to be had in this late stage of the season where everyone's vying for those coveted playoff positions. So super, super proud of Joe Flacco and what he's been able to accomplish in a short amount of time with the Cleveland Browns. And I think this is sustainable success as they're not asking him to run outside of the pocket or, do a lot of extra things. They're asking him to sit in the pocket and deliver the ball. And he's shown an ability to do that. And if you're asking me if they can make a deep playoff run, I think they can just because of the parity in the AFC this year. There's no dominant Patrick Mahomes. There's no dominant. Even Bills are a little shaky, and they've been shown to that they can be had. So it's I think the year of a defense. We see Baltimore, we see Cleveland, even Kansas City, all playing defense first ball, and if they can go ahead and play with those guys, which I think they can, they'll be okay.
For sure. And I think right now they would be playing the AFC South winner at the four seed,
Hmm.
which I think is a favorable matchup for, them for sure, just given what they've already
Yeah.
put on tape. But yeah, I think Joe Flacco's playing at a high level, and I feel like the Browns are, putting him in positions to succeed, just given the weapons around him. I think when he's given time in the pocket, he's still a really good pocket passer. Um, he does throw the interceptions. I believe he's still thrown like 6 interceptions in the last 3 games, so maybe that's a little bit of a concern when you go into playoff football. But
Yeah.
I think he's playing at a high level. Um, I feel like it's a recipe for success what they're doing right now. The run game is not all that without Nick Chubb, of course, but the pass game is still there. They're a top 5 offense in the last few weeks.
Hmm.
Njoku, Amari Cooper, they still have weapons there that can, make some havoc. So I like what they're doing right now. Just I want to give credit to Stefanski and the GM just for kind of constructing this team, given the losses of Chubb and Deshaun Watson. It's surprising that Flacco was available. With how many teams needed quarterback play this year, and the Browns were able to pick him up, and he's been able to excel.
Yeah.
So I like what I'm seeing from them defensively. We know what they can do, led by Myles Garrett, and they have those guys in the secondary, obviously, that can make plays, generate turnovers. Um, Obviously, they're not good enough to get that division over the Ravens with how they're playing, but I mean, just the fact that they're like right at like a clear playoff team right now in terms of the wild card race, the 6 and 7 seed is probably not going to catch them. So they're locked into
Hmm.
that 5 seed, I think, and that's a matchup that you don't want to see if you're, those divisional winners. So yeah, I like what they've been doing all year. And I'm looking forward to what they can do come playoffs. But at the level of play Joe Flacco is playing at right now, we've seen quarterbacks like Josh Dobbs, Tommy DeVito, play at a high level this year in replace of the starting quarterbacks, but kind of have their moments, and then they kind of lose their 15 minutes of fame or whatever you want to call it, and they start playing poorly, and then they get benched.
Yeah.
With how well Flacco has been playing this year, do you think he's kind of set the bar so high where there's a possibility that he could have one of those games coming up where just nothing's quite going right for him, and it's just looking like a different conversation surrounding him?
I think you actually have to anticipate that going forward. There's obviously a reason why he was sitting on his couch for a majority of the season. And a bulk of that is because of his age, and there's, of course, some liabilities. But I think what's beautiful about the Cleveland Browns system is that they're not relying on him to do too much. They have a good running back, good assets for him to throw to as well. So he's not being asked to do too much. Where if you look at some of the examples that you that you pointed at, like Joshua Dobbs with the Vikings, their defense was doing all right actually when they received him, but they just needed a little oomph on offense where he just wasn't able to make accurate throws. I think Joe Flacco has the ability to make accurate throws, and sometimes his reads are a little slow, and he makes the wrong read, and that happens to the best of them. But ultimately, I do think in the playoffs that he'll come a little bit down to earth, and will be more of like will be around 200 yards, maybe averaging that amount. And in the playoffs, that could be enough to get it done with the brand of basketball football that the Cleveland Browns like to play.
hmm So right now, I'm just looking at it. The Browns and Joe Flacco are throwing the ball 45 times a game in the last 3,
Wow.
which puts them at third in the league. So Flacco clearly is, still slinging it, like he used to all his years in Baltimore. So I think that also comes down to the running game. You did mention they have a running game, which, Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt, they're good, kind of caliber players. They can make plays here and there, but just
Yeah,
not as much of a threat as Nick Chubb and,
of course.
so it seems like they're relying on that passing game, and it's given them
A
success
little too
recently.
much.
And, but yeah, you got to
Hmm.
have that balance a little bit. And, obviously when you're down in those playoff games, you might, need to, bring out 40 plus pass attempts per game. But if you can
Yeah,
kind of generate a balance with the run game and they're able to give you more out of the backfield, I think that just makes this offense even more dangerous.
yeah,
But we'll see what they do moving forward. I don't,
right.
I think Flacco's kind of, he's not necessarily set himself up for failure with how well he's played, but I think teams are definitely going to be keyed in on, his, past happiness, and the fact that he does turn the ball over a little bit, and the fact that he does
Mhm.
throw the ball so much. So you're going to see, some defensive coverages kind of attacking that and perhaps trying to confuse him a little bit, given the fact that
Hmm.
he's thrown 6 interceptions in the last three. But I think right now, the Browns are, obviously the vibes are high, and if they can kind of finish out the season strong, then they're just a team you don't want to face. And, for the Jaguars, for example, if they have to play the Jaguars, I mean, that's a favorable matchup for the Browns, just
For
given the
sure.
experience they have over them. People have to remember the Browns went to the playoffs in 2020 and went to the divisional round with Baker Mayfield. So they're a team with some experience, not as young as some may think compared to the Jaguars, who just
Jaguars.
got their
Right.
first taste of it last year, right? So we'll see what happens, but I just like where the Browns have kind of positioned themselves, after some early season adversity. So yeah, we'll see
Yeah.
what
And
happens.
yeah, and to add on that quickly, I think one thing the Browns could be doing a little bit better when you signify how much of the passing attack that they have been relying on throwing the ball that much times in a game, that does leave their defense susceptible to being overworked and being on the field a little bit too much. So I would like to see them playing a better, more balanced brand of basketball. I mean football, where they can come onto the field, play more complementary, have a good running game, eat up the clock, and have their defense be the highlight of their team. I think that would be ideal for them. So if they can find a way to reactivate, Ford and Kareem Hunt to make them a little bit more productive, I think that would be the better formula for playoff success.
Definitely. I mean, we all know that, playoff football, you need to run the ball. So we'll see
Yep.
what happens with them. But I like what they're doing so far. Nevertheless, they deserve the credit for being in this position for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
For
Next
sure.
topic up, we have the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, looking
Yeah.
to get a extension done in the offseason. I think it's been a successful pairing for the two parties. Obviously Baker Mayfield's looking like, you know, the best kind of run of form in his career right now. Um,
Hmm.
got them in position to, win the NFC South, but they still kind of have to, you know, get some wins over some divisional foes and kind of hope that the Saints and the Falcons don't catch up to them with just it being a one game difference. But with what Baker and the Bucks have done this year, I mean, do you think it's in the best interest for these two to kind of secure that extension, just given how they've looked this year?
I think they should, because if they don't, another team will. A team with a hard nosed head coach and culture will pick him up, and I think that's the type of tone you want to set as a Buccaneers franchise who's booming off of the Tom Brady era. Like you want to create a culture and establish something that can be longevity that can have some longevity behind it. And I think this grit and toughness that Baker Mayfield plays with exuberates the type of culture you want to be setting as a organization that's moving freshly off of one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. So in my opinion, you're not going to find a quarterback in the open market that's going to give you what Baker's been able to give you here. He's been able to utilize some of his most youthful players, and Mike Evans having a great year like always. I think he's on pace for another 1,000 yard career, another 1,000 yard season if he hasn't already hit it. And then on top of that, Rashard White has been playing phenomenally as well. So their offensive line is playing good as well. So what you want to do is maximize your strengths here, play more defense in the offseason. You can surround Baker with more defensive pieces as well, and let him be that game manager of sorts. And you have the weapons offensively already. So continue to build off that. I think it would be a mistake to let him go into the free market, and there's a lot of teams that would love to have him. A team that I'm looking at right now is like the Steelers would be a great fit for him with Mike Tomlin. I think that is like a cohesive, just culture fit for him, and that's someone that Mike Tomlin might prefer over Kenny Pickens. But I think they're leaning towards Kenny Pickens, giving him another year under a new OC, of course. But if Baker Mayfield becomes available, I think he's the type of guy that fits that hard nosed system a lot better. So ultimately, that caliber of leader, which is amazing to say, really about Baker this far into his career, but that caliber of leader at the quarterback position is hard to find, frankly. So I think they should lock in and give him an extension, 3 to 4 years, maybe 25, 30 mil. Is not crazy.
Ooh, okay. I mean, I would
30 mils on
agree.
the high end. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
for
I
sure.
said I would agree though that they should kind of secure this extension. I don't know if it, should be anything long term, but I think definitely an extension because yeah, like you mentioned, the Bucks need that
Yeah,
quarterback after Tom Brady, and they, have tried for many years, even before Tom Brady, to kind of find that
right.
quarterback of the future. You look at Josh Freeman, Jameis Winston, Ryan Fitzpatrick, they haven't really been able to secure that guy
Yeah.
that, is young and can kind of grow with that team long term. But I think right now you have the perfect opportunity to secure that future with Baker Mayfield and yeah, like you said, also like he's playing well with these pieces. Mike Evans, the run game is looking good. And yeah, the pass game is, looking good overall. So I like what they're doing right now. They're looking like the most consistent team in that division, most hot
Hmm.
team in the
Yep.
division at the moment. So offensively, I like what they're
Consistent is
doing.
key.
Consistency is key, especially in
Hmm.
that division, right? Where, you're kind
Right.
of hovering around 500. Everybody's kind of 8-7, 7-8 right now. So kind of need to separate yourself from the pack. And that's what the Bucks have been able to do, as of recent. They're looking like a really good offense right now. So I like what they're doing. Um, but ultimately, like, has he surpassed your expectations this season, given what you expected coming in? There was that quarterback competition in the preseason or in the
Yeah.
training camp between him and Trask. He was able to,
Hmm.
get the advantage in that department and then, go into the season strong. But do you think he surpassed your expectations? Like, what were your expectations for him coming in and, has he surpassed them?
Yeah. I think he has. Like I think overwhelmingly almost because of his ability to engage his offensive pieces. And looking at it from the early season, we didn't know how much of a how much he would utilize the pieces that he has. Obviously, that Mike Evans is a Hall of Fame wide receiver. Chris Godwin is amazing in the slot. He has a couple of good running backs. How much could he get the best out of those guys? And he's proven week over week that he can utilize those pieces. And he's given Mike Evans another 1,000 yard season, which seems like any quarterback can do. But really, this is a testament to Baker Mayfield and his ability to step in and win that competition and not just he never wavered. That's the thing about it. Like we've seen how many quarterbacks get benched this year because of their lack of performance. Him year week in and week out, there of course he's had some harder performances, but his ability to continuously bounce back and be a be a consistent piece on that offense is something that's really admirable in my opinion. And I'm not the biggest Baker Mayfield fan, but he's really shown me something this year that shows me that I want him as the leader of my franchise for real. How about you? Do you
Yeah.
think how much has he surpassed it? Might be the question.
I mean, I remember we did that video on Baker Mayfield getting the QB1 spot for the Bucks in preseason. I remember we
Hmm.
made it and we were talking about like his maturity levels and everything. He's been around the league a little bit, his journey since Cleveland.
Right.
And, expectations, I mean, at that point, they weren't the highest, I'll be honest, from my end. But I think he surpassed it. He's looking like a leader, looking like he has control of the locker room right now. And it's
Yeah.
always good when have players that look to you and, expect you to make those plays. I saw it from game one as a Vikings fan, they weren't, looking the best on offense in that game. And then he was kind of able to revitalize them, get hot, make the
Yeah.
right throws and, put them in position to win the game, and they did. And recently they're playing really well. So I think he surpassed my expectations for sure. He's probably had the best season of his career. He's on track to do so for sure. So I think it's essential that when you kind of have these seasons with teams, you can kind of get that contract, secure your future, and the Bucks. I feel like it's in their best interest as well because they haven't been able to find that
Hmm.
quarterback, and quarterback play is important, especially like I said, going back to it, in this division where the Falcons are, flip-flopping quarterbacks. The
Yeah.
the Saints are getting inconsistent quarterback play from Derek Carr.
Yeah.
And then the Panthers are just a young team right now. So I mean the time right now is just, strike while the iron's hot, as they say.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think right now the Bucks are definitely the most consistent team and, Baker Mayfield's deserving of this extension.
Yeah. And I think that what benefits you with extending this guy is you know what you're getting, right? If you ask the quarterbacks in this division, like you said, there's so much. We thought we knew what we were getting in Derek Carr. I guess not.
Yeah.
Desmond Ritter, we didn't know what we were getting. We didn't know what we were getting in Bryce Young. And now all of a sudden, Baker Mayfield is the most distinguished out of those four. If it's that simple, then you can go into the next offseason understanding exactly where your holes are and you can fill them, properly. Where these teams are still wondering if their quarterback should be fixed and all of that. And if you don't have that quarterback fixed, maybe you're not making the right plays. And even if you are plugging the right holes in your roster, if your quarterback is not able to utilize those holes, I mean, those assets that you've provided him, it will be for nothing. So, and that just understanding where they are in the division and understanding kind of the environment around them, I think would be in their best interest to extend him. And I think a good comparison to this might be like last year, Geno Smith. Give him a Geno Smith contract. I think it was 3 years, 90 mil. Something
Hmm.
similar to that, I think would be okay. And I don't know if his
Yeah.
market is that high, but that's something similar that I see. And Seattle was kind of in that same place last year where they didn't know what they were getting, but now they were like, oh wow, this guy's actually a consistent piece. And if we go into the next year with him, we can build a proper team around him. And they've done a decent job at it this year.
No doubt about that. I mean, we'll see what happens. But yeah, Baker Mayfield just playing at a high level right now. I think he's deserving of
Yeah,
this
sure.
extension. I think we agree on that too. So,
Yeah.
um, moving on, Baltimore Ravens, definitely playing at a high level as well. They're one of your teams. You were high on them in the preseason. You picked them as,
Hmm.
your number one seed. And, I'll be honest, I kind of, raised my eyebrows to that. But I mean, they've definitely surpassed my expectations this year. I think playing at a high level on both sides of the ball, we saw 5 interceptions against the 49ers. I mean, that's no small feat right there. So
Right.
just given everything they've shown before we're doing this pod, I mean, 3 losses on the year. Do you think
Yeah.
this is the Ravens' year to win the Super Bowl?
Man, as a year as their year as ever. If not now, I don't know when, because I think our biggest concern, and I'll throw this over to you after I give a little bit of my piece, but I'm interested to see like what your reservations were early in the season and kind of what have you seen to get over those. But ultimately, if not this year, my biggest thing was is Lamar Jackson able to lead a team against Patrick Mahomes led offense or a Josh Allen led offense. And now we're seeing the way the years played out. We see the Chiefs are actually defensive minded this year. They're not led by their offense. And if it in that case where we have the most normal AFC race that we've had since I don't even know when, a great quarterback hasn't been leading a great offense in the AFCs. Sursa, Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. This is all about December and January football, running the ball, and the Ravens have been a top three running offense in the last 4 or 5 weeks or something like that. And that's something that obviously translates to the playoffs. They've been one of the top tier defenses, giving different type of schemes to different teams that they've been able to face. And with that combination, Lamar Jackson is he's being a game manager in the best sense of that word. And I think that word gets a lot of flack, but ultimately, like sometimes that's all is expected in the NFL, where these rosters are built out perfectly around the assets of the quarterback. And now the quarterback, it's an ability to not just be a game manager, but in those moments where you need a superstar level quarterback play, Lamar Jackson was able to give you a 30-yard run, number one of the season, his best of the season last week against the 49ers. That's what Lamar Jackson's great at. And his ability to play that game manager role and know when he can utilize his feet and his great playmaking skills with his arm as well in those key situations, I think is what's going to be able to get him over the top. When I compare him to teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, even the Dolphins or the Bills, I think all three of those teams have gaping holes that we've seen. I think the Kansas City offense is something that can be taken advantage of, and you can force them into turnovers and things like that. The Dolphins haven't shown me that they can win on the road, especially against an opponent that's above 500. I mean, I think they just won against the Cowboys at home this week, and they barely were able to win that. And I don't think that's a crazy feat at home. The Cowboys are a bad road team, so to me, like that's not the signature win that gives me the Dolphins. That gives me the 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 reasonable like just belief in their ability to beat the Ravens. And the Bills, we've seen their inconsistency. And if you put Josh Allen in that type of situation, he's prone to make turnovers as well. The Ravens don't do any of that. And I think that's why they're set up to make the deepest playoff run of all of the AFC teams. And I'm excited to see what they can do because this year could be the year for Lamar. And I'm super excited for that.
Hmm. Yeah. Uh, Definitely. I think this is the year for the Ravens. They just look like the most consistent team out of the bunch.
Complete.
I mean,
Right.
Miami is still kind of new to this, Tua Tagovailoa just still, no playoff experience. Miami just kind of new to the scene a little bit. Baltimore, they have the experience. They've been through these playoff roads
Hmm.
before and they've battled through, playoff losses before. And I feel like, my reservations, as you mentioned, about the Ravens coming into the year was like how Lamar was just gonna come, off that contract, off of, the injury. Like the Ravens didn't look good last year. I didn't think that Lamar was just gonna come in and, be back to his normal self, if not better. And what he's been able to do this season, I mean, he's proven to be, an MVP candidate, maybe even the front runner
Favorite.
right now. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think it's been really good for them just what they've been able to do without J.K. Dobbins, without Mark Andrews. I mean, they're playing at a high level. Zay Flowers has come on recently and just been a real difference maker. And I just like what they're doing on both sides of the ball. Defensively, I mean, it's going to matter when you're, hosting those home games if they can get that one seed and, teams have to come into Baltimore and contend with a defense that can, generate turnovers as good as they can. So I just think it's bigger than just Lamar. It's this whole team. I feel like this is the year for the Ravens, especially with how the Chiefs are playing right now. And, the Bills are, on a little win streak right now, but I don't think the Bills have enough to kind of cover up all of their
Right.
their problems because they do still turn the ball over and, they were able to kind of barely sneak by a team like the Chargers last week. So I think consistency is the biggest thing, as we say, and the Ravens have shown it all year. They're the most consistent. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I don't have much hesitancy regarding their ability to translate this into the playoffs. As it's kind of been documented already. Lamar Jackson only one playoff win, right? So people may, not be, kind of too keen on picking this team to, make those playoff, advancements this year. But as I said, they've kind of been through it a couple of times, and I feel like the experience is going to take them a long way, and they're the most suited. And also credit to Lamar Jackson, especially just because like I just think he's developed as not only
Yeah.
a pass, like a running type of quarterback. People call him a running back. People didn't really put respect on his passing game, and I was kind of one of those people in terms of like I didn't think he could, lead this offense in the passing game to, make those throws, make those winning plays. But, he's
Hmm.
kind of, made it simple this year and he's been able to be,
Yeah.
effective as a passer, been able to use his legs when he needs to. It just seems like this offense is just, better suited. And I believe they do have they have a new offensive coordinator right there, right this year. Like I think Greg Roman was the prior one who they had success with, but ultimately wasn't able to stay there, beyond last season. And I think right now this offensive coordinator for the Ravens is kind of, got them operating at a high level and credit goes to him as well. So yeah, this team is, definitely a favorite
Yeah.
in my opinion for the AFC championship.
Yeah. And I think this matchup will be very interesting. This week 17 Ravens versus Dolphins. I think that will show us kind of something of an AFC championship game preview. The where two teams that could definitely be in there. Two teams who are still fighting for that number one seed. It will be interesting to see how that goes and who gets the better of who and how they match up with each other. But ultimately, when I look back into the offseason, I'm thinking about how not a single NFL franchise with all the poor quarterback play this year gave Lamar Jackson an offer. I think that was that. I mean, like straight up, I have no information about this, but there's no way that's not owner collusion. Like, there's no way not a single other quarterback. I mean, another franchise was willing to put a contract in front of Lamar Jackson, and only the Ravens were. I think that's a little suspicious, but overall, I'm not here to speculate on that aspect of it. I'm just really, I think I'm proud of what Lamar Jackson had been able to do, like you said, with his passing game and just consistently be like that's kind of why I called him that game manager. I don't think a lot of people um, saw his ability to make those passes on a consistent level and his ability to do that with any with any asset that comes and goes is just shout out to Lamar. He's made leaps and gains and it's he's the type of quarterback I think with this type of team that you need. So this is great and like I said, rushing threat of course and this is bigger than Lamar. Like I don't want to put too much emphasis on Lamar because this is the well built team from defense to offense to the running game to the offensive pieces that they've drafted in Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely. This is a great team, and I'm eager to see how they play. But consistency is key, and like you said, they've been the most consistent team in the league this year.
For sure. And the turnovers, there's not really much interceptions thrown by Lamar too. So he's kind of developed as a dual threat quarterback,
Hmm.
just being able to attack defenses in different sort of ways. So, I don't think we're going to see as much, defensive coverages in the playoffs that are kind of looking to stop him from, getting outside the pocket and running. I think you're going to have to respect him in all sort of aspects because he can hurt you with
Hmm.
his ability to pass the ball as well. So just makes for a dangerous team, especially if they're able to get that number one seed. And I don't think that's the type of team you want to face this year. So yeah, definitely credit to what they're doing right now, and we'll see what happens in this game against Miami. Miami is another team that's got to be proven to win the games on the road. If they don't get the number one seed, then I mean, they're gonna have to go on the road. So this is a test for them that they can kind of,
Yeah.
respond to. And we saw earlier in the year, I think it was Miami versus Buffalo, where they had to go to Buffalo and they just got, handled in that game. Just, and I think that's an
Yeah.
understatement, but I can't remember what the score was. It just wasn't close. So this is
Yeah.
definitely a test for Miami, see what they can do, in these big games. But I think the Ravens have kind of, over the, last 5 to 10 years, whatever, have kind of been able to go through these playoff moments and handle adversity. And Harbaugh, I think, is for sure the type of coach that's going to have
Hmm.
him ready for these moments. So we'll see again
Right.
what happens with them. But I'm definitely picking them as
Yeah.
my Super Bowl favorite out of this AFC.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it bodes well for them that they've had a couple failures in the playoffs, especially Lamar himself. I think they know what they're getting themselves into, and with Lamar having that type of playoff experience, he comes in with a different level of um, just secureness within himself and his abilities, and not playing outside of his game. Just making the proper reads and making the proper throws, and ultimately, if it all fails, he can still be a big threat on with his legs.
Hmm. Um, Next topic, the Detroit Lions. Of course, were able to clinch the NFC North on Sunday in their win against the Vikings. I think it's been 30 years or something like that. So it's
30
been a
years.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dan Campbell's kind of been able to, change the narrative surrounding this organization in as little as 3 years.
Crazy.
So, yeah, definitely crazy. So just given, the fact that they are kind of locked into that playoff spot, home field for one game at least, how do you expect this team to fare in the playoffs?
Yeah, great question. I think before I hop in that, man, Dan Campbell, just I can't give him enough praise. He was on the team that went on 16, the Lions team that went on 16 not too long ago. Going from a player on that team and just having that hard nosed attitude that I was talking about before with Mike Tomlin and Baker Mayfield. I think that bodes well for our team in the playoffs. And ultimately, he's been able to. And ultimately, like I think a good comparison to him would be the anti him is someone like a Sean Payton, where like he's he instead of empowering his players like a Russell Wilson and his guys to perform, like I think I think that might be a conversation for another time. But ultimately, Dan Campbell, his ability to empower his guys and make them play at their very best is something that is admirable by a head coach. Jared Goff came in as a guy who was told that he can't win a Super Bowl with, and he was able to bring him in and not just bring him in and kind of be the quarterback that's here now, but be the quarterback that has the faith that can go get it done. And their ability to clinch that NFC North division is all a testament to him and his leadership style. So shout out to him first and foremost. But to get into the playoffs, how they'll vote in the playoffs. Ultimately, I do think there's levels to this, and I think the 49ers and the Cowboys are on a different level than the Lions and maybe the Eagles as well. I think the Lions are more of like Eagles. I think they're more in the Eagles tier than they are in the 49ers tier. And I think the Cowboys in the playoffs, if they're not on, if they're when they are on the road and they're the fifth seed, so they will be traveling on the road for almost every game outside of the first game, I think. And so wait, no, not even the first game they'll be traveling to the fourth seed. So ultimately, I'm not really like when the Cowboys go on the road, they're not a team that I'm scared of, frankly, and I put them lower in the tier. But I think there's just levels to it where the 49ers are the most complete team with the most complete roster from the defensive to the offensive end. I think the Lions will do pretty decent. I think they could win their first round matchup against the wild card Rams or the Buccaneers or the Seahawks or whoever it is at home. But I think when they have to travel on the road against a 49ers team or even an Eagles team or a Cowboys team, it could get a little dicey. And I guess not the Cowboys, but the Eagles and the 49ers. So I think they're just on the second tier in the NFC where they're not, if everything falls right for them, they might be able to get to the NFC Championship game, but I don't see them making it to the Super Bowl. What do you think?
Hmm. Yeah, so, just to give myself a little pat on the back real quick, I mean, I picked the Lions to go to the NFC Championship as my bold
You did.
prediction.
Oh, wow.
But
Okay.
yeah,
Go.
so obviously it was bold before the year. Now it's looking like it could be a possibility, but
Yeah.
we'll see. But I think this Lions team can match up with anyone in the AFC or NFC, just because of personnel and their offense especially. Their offense can put up points in bunches.
Mm,
They have weapons in the backfield, two-headed monster of Gibbs and Montgomery, and then you have the receiving threats of Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and then you've got some other guys that can make, splash plays like Josh Reynolds and Khalif Raymond. So it's a good team that, meshes well. The chemistry just looks at like it's an all-time high, and the credit
yeah.
goes to Dan Campbell for that for sure because he's been able to put that culture in there. But the biggest drawback for me on this team is their lack of experience and their defense, particularly their pass defense. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the inexperience, I mean, don't need to speak too much on that. I mean, they just don't have playoff experience. This
Yeah.
core hasn't gotten
Right.
to the playoffs. It's been a while since the Lions have been in the playoffs. I know they're able to get there in the 2010s with Stafford, but it's been a while. These guys haven't been able to go to the playoffs and, really
No.
handle it. Um, as in terms of, you know, the other point I made regarding what was the other point I made? Inexperience, defense,
Hmm.
right? Pass defense, it's one of the worst in the league, just to be honest. I mean, they allow a lot of yards per game. Run defenses are all right, but I think they just are prone to, those splash plays, and I just don't think that's a recipe for success. So if you're a team like the Seahawks, the Rams, whoever gets those 6 or 7 spots, probably the sixth spot, you're gonna want to play that type of team. That's a favorable matchup for you because you know that you can put up points, especially with the way that Rams are playing right now offensively. I mean, that's the type of team that you want to play, and that'd make for some good
Right.
football because we're seeing Matthew Stafford go to Ford Field and potentially get a win there. I mean, I'd love to see just that game, but
Yeah. For sure. For
I
sure.
just think the Lions are gonna they're going to be here for the future. So whatever happens in the playoff, it is what it is. But they're a team that's kind of built to take control of this NFC North for a while. But yeah, right now I just think defensively they're not the best. But I do think Aaron Glenn is still a really good coordinator. Um, but offensively, it's just that's their bread and butter. That's where they're going to make their their competitiveness stand out. And I think they're a team that can at least translate into the playoffs. They're not as bad of a defense as like the Vikings were last year as a 3 seed.
Hmm. Right.
It's not that bad, but it's just like their offense is going to have to do some work to be able to get them over the hump in these games. And the defense is going to stand out more so I'd say on the road than it would at home because I just think the home crowd can get you a win in the playoffs, but when you have to go to a place like if they're the 2 seed, to the NFC East winner or the
Yeah.
49ers, that's tough, because those teams have way more experience than you in these moments. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they can kind of handle that. You look last year at the Giants, right? The Giants were a team with, not much playoff experience, but they were going to, play the Vikings for the second time in as little as 3 weeks, I believe it was, in the wild card game, and they had lost the first matchup. I just think it's a favorable, sort of outcome when you have these teams that are not really perfectly built. Like the Lions aren't perfectly built on all sides of the ball. Like defensively, I think that's like I said, that's where they can be had. And the Giants
Hmm.
clearly saw that with the Vikings last year in their defense and were able to, exploit the defense with the Daniel Jones run game and then the little dinks and dunks from Daniel Jones. Saquon Barkley had his effect, and I just think that's what you're gonna have to watch out for with these teams that don't have that playoff ready defense, and that's still what matters. Defenses still win championships, I believe. So we'll see what happens, but I think Dan Campbell definitely deserves credit for where they're at right now, and also Ben
Mhm.
Johnson, who for sure is not going to be there next year because he's going to get a head coaching gig. I think he's coached this offense really well. So credit to a lot of those guys. And in terms of Jared Goff and his doubters in the past, I just think that was kind of overblown. He got to a Super Bowl. Who's to say he couldn't have won it with that team? I think he's playing at a really high level. He's very accurate. He does have those games where he just doesn't look there. He doesn't look right, like throws interceptions, commits turnovers. But when he's on it, I mean, you see those type of games that he had against the Vikings. He can really pick apart defenses, and I think he's going to be key in any sort of playoff run this team makes because of his experience in these moments. And they don't have much, so they're going to have to
Yeah,
definitely rely on him. So we'll see what
yeah,
happens moving forward for them. But in terms of coach of the year candidacy, like how high on this list, on that list, would you put Dan Campbell? For me, he's the front runner.
yeah. I think he's right up there. I'll put him up there with. I'm trying to think of other. Maybe I would put McDaniel's or Harbaugh in there. Um, Shanahan. But yeah, I think I'll put Dan Campbell over all of those guys just because of what he's been able to do with the roster turnover that he's been able to do from last year to this year, and just his ability to coach the heck out of these guys. So, I do think he's the favorite. It will depend. I think if Lamar wins the MVP, it might Harbaugh might be right up there with him. McDaniel's, if they get the number one seed, might be right up there with him. So it's really it's a close matchup, but I think Dan Campbell has done a great job of showing off what he can do and winning the NFC North and clinching that. I think that's all he can do. And I think they're still able to get the second seed. If the Eagles just have a really easy schedule, so I doubt they will. But if they're able to just get that second seed, that might help them a little bit as well. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think my biggest reservation about them in the playoffs, though, just to kind of get back to that conversation, is like we just seen what happened when they go down early in games, and if they get down early, like you said, their passing attack uh, gets targeted early and often, and they're playing against a good defense. Will they be able to come back out of that hole? Jared Goff, I do believe in him, but um, is he prone to maybe defensive pressures and making mistakes? Is probably my only reservation. But ultimately, I do think they're definitely in the second round and have a possibility to make the NFC Championship game. So yeah, Dan Campbell, I think he should be winning the. My personal pick would be him or McDaniel's.
Mm. I mean, I will say last year, Brian Daboll won it. So you look at just
Yeah,
the how they kind of pick this award. It's kind of the most improved almost for coaches, or organizations.
almost.
So
Yeah,
that's kind of where I go with Dan Campbell. But obviously, Miami has taken another step further this year. So between those two, I mean, that's definitely where I'd say the conversation lies. But yeah, just again, credit to the Lions right now. As a Vikings fan, you don't want to see it, especially the fact that they were able to clinch, on the road in US Bank Stadium.
no,
But
yeah, that
you
sucks.
know, it is, time to kind of give them the recognition they deserve.
Hmm.
They've
Hmm.
had this preseason hype going for a while with, we saw what Jamal Williams was able to do. I think we saw them on Hard Knocks last year and the way they kind of got that hype a little bit before the preseason and they started the season off slow but we're able to finish the season off strong. So that's kind of gave me the inclination that, I had to pick this team or see this team as potentially a team that could kind of take that jump this year, just given what they've been building. So, just, with the whole identity of Detroit and everything like that, I think Dan Campbell is just that perfect fit and they have the players right now to make some noise in the playoffs. But it's going to take a whole team effort, and I'm interested to see what happens, especially when they have to host their first playoff game and potentially go on the road against these more proven teams of what they can do in those moments. But one thing we know about Detroit Lions is that they're fearless, right? They don't care
Yeah.
what happens. They're going to make they're going to make those decisions. They're going to go for it on fourth down. They're going to do what it takes to put themselves in
Yeah,
position to succeed. So I just like
love
that,
that.
that's their identity, and that's kind of what Dan Campbell's instilled in them. But, we'll see what
Yeah,
happens. Again,
yeah,
credit to them. Uh,
yeah.
Last
For
topic.
the record,
Okay, go
for
ahead.
the record, as a Vikings fan, they're my least hated team in the NFC North. So I do like them to succeed. I can't lie. This is a good. I would rather have them win the division outside of the Vikings than anyone else. So
I
go
mean,
Lions.
definitely. Packers and Bears have a little bit more of
Animosity.
a, what I'm saying, like for the Vikings fan, because that's been the three competitive teams in the division. So nobody's
Yeah,
really looking for the Lions really like that. But I think, just respectfully. But right now, they're just
respectfully, respect.
they're establishing themselves in this conversation. So
Yeah.
I like what they're doing, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they can do in, playoff football. But the last topic we
Hmm.
had, as we mentioned before the pod, this kind of breaking news, the Vikings starting Jaren Hall in a pivotal, game on Sunday Night Football against the Green Bay Packers. It's a big decision for them to go in this direction because, they still have things to play for. And um, Nick Mullins, did throw for 700 yards in his two starts, but obviously has a turnover. So I would say Mullins was able to kind of move the ball a little bit more effectively than Dobbs was able to. But Jaren Hall, you're intrigued by what he was able to show in that Atlanta Falcons game before he went out with that concussion. So ultimately, do you agree with this decision? And what do you think this changes for the Vikings offense?
Yeah, man. When I heard the news, I didn't know what to make of it, frankly. I didn't know whether they were looking to call it a day and kind of throw in the towel for the season and just kind of develop their younger quarterback and see what they have in him, or if they were really, behind the scenes. Of course, we're not there in the training camps and in the practices, and maybe what they've seen from him is something that they've just been, eager to try out and something that they like. And I'm going to trust Kevin O'Connell, the quarterback whisperer of the Minnesota Vikings, to make that decision. Ultimately, I did like what I saw against the Falcons that week after Kirk went out, and his ability to take that Vikings quarterback of the Vikings offense down the field and nearly score. He got stood up on the 1 yard line trying to rush it in. That was crazy. That's a big play for them. But ultimately, I didn't see enough to make me think that he'd be a better fit than Mullins. Mullins does throw too many interceptions, and a team like I think Mullins or Jaren Hall, I think it might be more complementary to the type of football we're trying to play here, where our defense has come on as of late, and we've been one of the best defenses in the league, not allowing a touchdown since last week, I believe, in the last 4 weeks. Things like that probably have the coaching staff thinking that his ability to play with his feet a little bit more, Jaren Hall's, might be something that they can tap into a little bit more and play, like I said, more complementary football, where the defense is going to be the one taking it, and then hopefully he's not making as many turnovers and mistakes as Mullins did in the past couple of weeks, turning the ball over. So I think that might be the calculation for the Vikings. Ultimately, don't know what much to make of it, and I'm eager to see if they can get a couple of wins against the Green Bay and Lion teams that have a lot of animosity against the Vikings. So it should be interesting, but if we win, we have a 50% chance to get in. And if we lose, we're essentially out of the playoff matchup against the playoff race against the Packers. Last time, I think we did a really good job against the Packers. So I'm eager to see what happens. But I think if we can apply pressure on the Packers offensively, the Vikings will be able to take that W. But Jaren Hall, man, he's a little. I'm not gonna lie, he makes me a little scared. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think the benefit with putting Jaren Hall in there is just that I think this Vikings team needs more of a game manager than they need like a gunslinger type of quarterback that, can throw for
Hmm.
those, big 300-yard, 400-yard games. Because I feel like this Vikings team has enough weapons to complement a game manager type of quarterback. Obviously you do need to get your receivers the ball. Justin Jefferson,
Right.
of course. But right now, this Vikings offense is battling some adversity without TJ Hawkinson for the remainder of the season, and we'll see what happens with Jordan Addison, who also went down. Um, the run game was atrocious last week, only 17 yards total against the the Lions defense. So I think they're
Crazy.
gonna have to help him out, of course, but I think this team is more equipped for Jaren Hall to come and be that game manager, make the right reads, not try to force anything down the field that isn't there. As we saw last week, I mean, could have dumped it down to Brandon Powell, but instead he wants to go for that throw that would put them in, obviously good position, but it wasn't a great throw for that last interception by Mullins and ultimately sealed the game. But I think what we saw in those little, few plays that Jaren Hall did show on that second drive of the game against Atlanta was he makes the right reads. He's always, progressing through his reads, looking what's available before he takes off to run. But he obviously does have that ability to run, which I think makes him the, complete sort of package for what this Vikings offense is looking to do. Not necessarily just trying to run the ball, but also trying to make those passes. And I think he's accurate enough to make those passes that are there.
Mhm.
So I like how he's, a smart guy, just how he sounds in interviews. Looks like he can process, different coverages and with the Packers team that just suspended Jair Alexander, I mean, this is the time to, capitalize and keep yourself in that playoff hunt and see what you have in Jaren Hall if he can be your guy moving forward in terms of the backup. Because I do think the Vikings still want to bring back Kirk Cousins, just given what they've seen out of the quarterbacks that they have this year. But Jaren Hall definitely seems like the guy that a lot of Vikings fans want, and a lot of Vikings fans are going to get with him getting the start on Sunday. So I'm looking forward to seeing what
Mhm.
he can do in that game and in that environment because it is still a lot of things on the line. We'll find out a lot more of what's on the line by the time Sunday night hits because the
Yeah,
Seahawks and the Rams play earlier. But it's going to be interesting to see like how he handles that primetime pressure.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, it should be a good competition. I'm eager to see him play in the whole game. Justin Jefferson also didn't play in that game, so to get that weapon back, I'm eager to see it. But honestly, the turnovers last week by Mullins, I think it was 4 interceptions, was very costly. But ultimately, I kind of appreciated him, taking chances with one of the best receivers in the game and throwing it up for him a couple times. If we had Addison in there, maybe he would have been able to give him a little bit more options. But again, I think Powell, that you're talking about, that last interception where Powell was open under, that was multiple times that he did that. Actually, looking back at that game, there was a few moments where he had guys around the first down marker, and instead he went for that big play. And like you said, we're not looking for that right now. I think our defense is good enough where we want to run the ball a little bit better. Like you mentioned, 17 yards is not going to cut it for any game. But if we can run the ball a little bit better and have more of a game manager, I think that could lead to success against the Packers team that is not going to light us on fire. I don't believe on offense.
Hmm. Yeah. But yeah, we can get into the score predictions right now
All right.
for week 17. Uh First game tonight, the Thursday night football matchup. We got the New York Jets going to Cleveland to play the Browns.
Yep, yep, yep. I think the Jets had a interesting performance last week, of ups and downs, and I honestly just am so interested to see how these two defenses play against each other's offense. But I have the Browns winning this one in a pretty comfortable matchup. I think the Browns win this 24-16. You know what? 24-13. I don't believe in the Jets.
Mhm. Okay. For me, I said 23 to 13. I just think the Browns are, got a little bit too much going offensively. I don't think the Jets can match that offensively. I mean, defensively, they have enough weapons to kind of actually get some interceptions on Flacco, as he's kind of shown. But I
Hmm.
don't think it's going to be enough offensively for them to put up points on this Browns defense. So that's where I say
Yeah,
23 to 13. Browns win this one.
yeah. They should have a couple of short field opportunities to convert on a touchdown.
Definitely. Uh, Next game, we got the Detroit Lions going to Dallas to play the Cowboys.
Yeah, this one's going to be interesting. I think the Cowboys, fresh off of the loss away in Miami, I think they're going to come in. They play really well at home, and I think they're going to play these guys pretty well. So I have the Cowboys winning this one. I think it's going to be much of a shootout. I have the Cowboys winning 32-28.
32 to 28.
So,
All right. I'll also take the Cowboys in this game. Uh, Cowboys are a different team at home. Much has been made of that, given that their last two losses have been on the road. But I think they're going to get back on track, show their explosiveness again in this game,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a tight one. But I think they're going to be able to edge it 30 to 27 for the Cowboys. Uh, Next game, we got the Patriots at Bills.
Yeah, this should be an interesting competition where the Patriots are actually putting up points again, which is interesting. But I think the Bills have something to play for here. Like you said, I think you condescendingly almost you said the Bills' little playoff, a little run that they've been on recently. I've been really proud of them, and that is something that I expected them to do just because of Josh Allen-led offense. I just think that they were going to make it to the playoffs no matter what, and they've been proving me right a little bit. So I think they'll roll right over the Patriots in a dominant fashion. I have the Bills winning this one 24 to 13.
I'll also pick the Bills in this one. I'm going to say 20 to 16. I just think with the divisional matchup, Buffalo has everything in their control right now. They control their own destiny, but I think when these when it looks like it's all good for the Bills, they don't always perform to the highest of their ability. I think this is the perfect game where the Patriots were able to get that win against the Broncos last week. I think they're coming in with some momentum, and obviously the Bills were able to get a win last week, but it wasn't in the best fashion, and it was too tight, I think, for a game against the Justin Herbert less Chargers. So it's gonna be a tight game, divisional game too. So 20 to 16, Buffalo Bills win this one. Uh, Next one, Atlanta Falcons at Chicago Bears.
Yeah, the Bears have been hooping this. I mean, they've been balling lately. Ultimately, I think I like their addition of Sweat on the defensive side of the ball. Been able to play a good caliber of defense lately, which is a good sign. And I think signing Sweat, it looked kind of crazy at the beginning, but I think that's a great move for them. I think they're going to go in all in on Justin Fields in the offseason. I don't think they'll be able. I don't think they'll be trading him. I think they'll be getting
Mhm.
Marvin Jr. In the draft and then doubling down with someone else later on. So I think they're looking like they're going to have a great regular offseason. And coming into that, they've been playing great. So I have the Bears winning this one in a tight race. I just don't really have much faith in the Falcons, even though the Falcons need this win more than the Bears. I just like what the Bears have been able to do on the offensive side as well. Justin Fields has been playing really well, and his ability to get that offense going is something that I don't doubt he'll be able to do against the Falcons. So, with that being said, I have the Bears winning this one in a close game, 23 to 20.
Mhm. For me, since you picked the Bears, I'm gonna pick the Falcons. I like what the Falcons have been doing with Heineke. Uh, Last week I believe they beat the Colts, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Let me just confirm that. Yeah, beat the Colts 29 to 10. And I think what they're doing right now is impressive, and they need to win games. So I'm gonna say 17 to 16. The Falcons win this one. I think Heineke has a good game. I think Bijan has a good game, and I think the Bears' recent run of hot form comes down to an end. And I think even though that wouldn't be great, I guess for the current roster. I mean, that's good for their offseason and get better draft positioning too, because they're looking like a good team that could make some noise next year. So yeah, it's 17 to 16. Falcons win this one for me. Um, Next one, we have the Raiders at the Colts.
Yeah, I have no hope in the Raiders right now. Their offense looks completely abysmal against a defense that knows anything of what they're doing. Right now, I like what the Colts are doing, even with kind of fluctuating play. They did get Josh Allen or JT back last week, and he performed decently. Got a touchdown from the 1 yard line, but I think he'll be able to run a little bit better on the Raiders defense, which has been pretty good actually. But I have the Colts winning this one in a tighter margin, in a tighter margin. Jeez Louise. 18 to 16 we'll go. Actually, we'll go 20 to 16. 20 to 16 Colts.
For me,
You know what? Actually, let me do 13. The Raiders 13 points. I
okay,
just really
good.
don't like O'Connell
You
got a
sh
win with yeah,
you sure?
less than 100. I think so.
Okay. 20, so
Actually,
20 to
no, I'm just kidding.
13.
No,
Okay. Okay.
20 to 13. 20 to
All
13.
right. Bet. For me, I'm gonna say the Colts win this one as well. I think the Raiders will put up a little bit more points, and also the same for the Colts as they only put up 10 last week. Gardner Minshew is still inconsistent quarterback, but I think with how he played last week, he's gonna bounce back and put up more points. So I'm gonna say 27 to 23. The Colts win this one at home. Uh, Next one we have the Rams going to play the Giants on the road.
Yeah. This should be interesting competition. Looking at this game, I think the Rams have a lot to play for here. I think the Giants are still looking for a pretty good pick in the draft next year and don't have much to play for. They did give the Eagles much of a competition last week in a in division game, but I don't think they'll be able to do the same with the Rams. I think the Rams are at a good point of the at our there are at a good point of the season where they've been able to mesh a little bit better, and Puka Nacua is just continuously showing that he can be a great performer down the stretch. I always believe in Matthew Stafford as well, and that defense is playing good. So I have the Rams winning this one, I think, in a pretty dominant fashion. I think I'll go with 24 to 16.
For me, this is where I'm gonna have to again hit the Uno reverse. I'm gonna have to see the Giants win this one. I like what the Giants have done recently. Even though they benched DeVito last week, I think Tyrod Taylor came in and it was close until the end against the Eagles last week. So I think they're going to be able to get this one done at home, even though the Rams are playing for something more. I think the Giants are going to play inspired football late in the season, and that's kind of one of those games where I could see the upset happen. So yeah, I said 20 to 17, the Giants win this one.
Okay. 20. Okay.
Uh, Next game, we have the Cardinals at the Eagles.
Yeah. This should be an interesting competition at Eagles. I think the Eagles will take care of business. I have them winning. Um, I'll go. I'll go down in performance by the Eagles, 30 to 17.
For me, I'll say 26 to 13, Philadelphia. Still a really good home team, and I think they're not satisfied with how they played last week, even though it was a win. They're gonna have to build some more momentum going into these last two games before the playoffs. Uh, I believe they're in the NFC East lead right now, given the fact that the Cowboys lost and they won, so they're gonna want to hold on to that as well. So they do have something to play for, and I think that's gonna lead to more inspired football in this one. So 26 to 13, Philadelphia wins it, but I think Arizona can put up some points. Uh, Next game, we have the Saints at the Buccaneers.
Yeah, this is an interesting division rivalry. I think this will shape the matchup for the division. Who will win the division? I have the Buccaneers squeezing a win out of this one, just playing a more consistent level ball that we've been talking about this whole pod, essentially. I'll take Baker and the Buccaneers winning 21 and 20. Should be a close one.
I mean, I said this was gonna be a close game regardless, but since you picked the Bucks, I'm gonna pick the Saints. I said 24 to 23. Saints win this one, still have something to play for. They don't want to, I mean, obviously this is their chance more than ever to, get the division. But if the Bucks win this one, they obviously can separate themselves. So I'm gonna say the Saints play inspired football and they show the good version of the Saints in this game and get that 1 point win. And this is where my bold prediction is gonna come out of. So yeah, 24-23, Saints win this one. Next game, we have the 49ers at the Commanders.
Yeah, I think the Commanders will completely obliterate the Commanders coming off of that almost embarrassing loss against the Baltimore Ravens last week. I had the 49ers putting up crazy points, and this will be where my bold prediction will come out of 34-13. Huge statement win. Not statement, but huge performance.
Low key could be a statement given how they played last week, though. But for me, I'll say the 49ers win this one as well. I think the Commanders are, going through a quarterback switch right now from Sam Howell. Unfortunate for him, but a little bit too many, I guess rookie mistakes, even though he's not a rookie. Uh, but yeah, I think they're gonna bounce back. The 49ers are gonna bounce back in this one. They're gonna win it 31-17. Uh, I just think they're gonna be way too much for the Commanders, and I don't know what to expect out of the Commanders in this one, given that it's gonna be Jacoby Brissett. So I'll say yeah, 31-17, 49ers win this one. Next game. It is the Panthers at the Jaguars.
Yeah, I think the Jaguars are in need of a win this week, just because of their latest performances recently have not been that good. But ultimately, I think what they've been fighting is kind of themselves, finding an identity. Their running game has fallen off in recent weeks, which is a bummer. But ultimately, I think they find their groove back here against the Panthers, which most teams have been able to do. I think the Jaguars will take care of business here, doing a pretty good job and shutting out the Panthers as well. So I have the Jaguars winning 28 to, I'll do 27, 27 to 10.
Hmm. 27-10, Jacksonville. For me, this is another one where I'm gonna pick the opposite. I'm gonna say the Panthers win this one. I believe they put up 30 points against the Packers last week and weren't able to get that win. I think that's going to inspire them to play a much better game against the Jacksonville Jaguars team that's been struggling of late. And I think it's going to be a 3 point game, 17-14. I got the Panthers winning this one.
Wow. You did tell me that when I told you the Jaguars were on a little skid before I even knew about the Lawrence coming back and playing. I had them out of my playoff picture, and you kind of looked at me sideways. But now if they lose this one, that would really get them off that if the Colts win as well.
Yeah, luckily
Even
the
less.
Tex the
Yeah.
Texans lost last week and then the Colts lost last week, so the
Yeah.
Jaguars have been saved a little bit, but that won't
So,
last all season. So I think the Panthers are gonna I think the Panthers will finish out the season in a strong manner. They've been through a lot of adversity this year, obviously Frank Reich being fired. So I think it's only right that they finish it out the right way. And you see
mhm,
by, the Adam Thielen interview, if you saw it, that he still, definitely wants to finish it out the right way. He's obviously a winner for most of his career. So we'll see what
mhm.
happens, but I got the Panthers winning this one by 3.
Yeah,
Next
that's
one,
cool.
it's the big one. We got the Miami Dolphins at Baltimore Ravens.
You know, all year from the preseason, I've been riding with my boys. Big trust, Lamar Jackson and the crew. Um, no reason why I wouldn't ride with them this week. Hosting the Dolphins, team that could possibly take the number one seed away from them, coming off a dominant performance against the 49ers with something to prove against one of the best teams in the AFC. I think they'll put the gauntlet down on the Dolphins offense and have a great game. I think it will be maybe a lot lower scoring, similar to last week's game with the Dolphins and Cowboys. So I think the Ravens will win this one in a decent fashion. I had them winning at 24-20.
Hmm.
And I think it will come down to a final drive where the Dolphins will fail to convert.
Yeah, if there's any game where, I'm going to pick the opposite of you, maybe it should be this game, but I'm too confident in what the Ravens are doing right now to pick against them. So I'll say 31 to 27 Baltimore. Um, I think both of these teams, put up a lot of points. So I think it's going to be a little bit more high scoring, but it's going to come down to the defense. And that's where I think Baltimore is going to be able to make the stand at the end of the game and get that win. So yeah,
Mhm.
Baltimore 31 to 27 at home against the Dolphins is my pick. Uh,
Yeah.
Next one, we have the Tennessee Titans at the Houston Texans.
Yeah, I think, like you said, yes, last week they took a rough L. CJ Stroud in and out of that game. I think they still have something to fight for. CJ Stroud is a winner through and through. I think the demeanor that he carries and the leader that he is looking to grow into is a caliber of which I'm really fond of. So I'm looking forward to them bouncing back from last week's L. I think they have an opportunity to take that division still, so they'll be playing with a chip on their shoulder with an ability to get a playoff spot. So I have the Texans winning this one. It should be a closer game than most people think, just because both of these teams are kind of a grinding team. I have the Texans winning this one, 24 to 22. You know what? I'll say it's 17 for the Titans, 24 to 17. Not as close, I guess, as I thought.
Yeah, for me, I'll also pick the Texans, but the Titans did play the Seahawks close, came down to the very end
Mm,
last week, so it's going to be a close game. And CJ Stroud, we don't know how he's going to look coming off of his, absences. So I'm going to say the Texans win this one, but the score I have is 24 to 14. It's a divisional matchup, but I just think there's too much for the Titans to handle in this game. 24 to 14 is what I have for the Texans.
okay.
Uh Next game we have Pittsburgh Steelers against the Seahawks.
Yeah, this one, man, I keep going back and forth. I don't know which team to pick. Mike Tomlin, always leading a great team, and as of late, I think they've been playing really well with the new offensive coordinator change as well. The Seahawks have something to play for as well. They're also trying to sneak into the playoffs, and as of right now, they are the seventh seed. Um, and really, it's going to come down to whether the Seahawks defense can stop the Steelers offense, and I think the Steelers will have a timely stop against the Seahawks, and this is a home game for the Seahawks, which makes me a little reluctant. But the line is 3.5, which means 3 points is already given to the home team, so it's really a toss up on this one. But I'll go ahead and pick the Steelers. I think the Steelers will edge out the Seahawks 22 or 21 to 20.
Yeah, I picked the Seahawks in this game. I just don't think the offense of the Steelers is going to be able to put together another consistent performance led by Mason Rudolph. Um, especially on the road, I don't think they're going to be able to get this one done in back-to-back weeks. So I'm going to say the Seahawks, put together a little bit more of a better performance this week. They win it by one possession, 23 to 16 Seahawks. Um,
Yeah,
Next
except that
game,
Kenny Pickens is.
huh?
I thought Kenny Pickens was playing, but we rocking out with the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. We trust.
I'm very confident it's Mason Rudolph, but we should always confirm. Uh,
I actually don't know.
oh, it's still Mason Rudolph is slated to be the starting quarterback on Sunday versus Seahawks. So
Okay,
yeah, we'll see what happens, but
cool.
that's my pick. Next one we have the Chargers at the Broncos. Broncos will have Jared Stidham in this game.
I cannot wait until the Broncos get completely shit on. I hate, sorry for my lack of clean language there, but I'm really not fond of Sean Payton and how he's been treating Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, it's not his fault that the Broncos organization gave up that many assets and gave him that much money. He's a player who's playing for the best contract as he possibly can, and the team who gave it to him is it's not his fault that the team gave it to him. Is my point. Ultimately, Sean Payton has been treating him in a very lackluster way. I don't think that's the type of leadership that you're looking for. I brought up that he's the antithesis of what Dan Campbell brings to the table as a leader, as a head coach. I think Sean Payton is overhyped as an offensive guru, and his inability to make it work with Russell Wilson has a lot to do with him, and his just lack of confidence with him from with for Wilson from the very beginning. So, man, I'm rooting completely against the Broncos right now, even though they are favorites against the Chargers at home. I just can't bring myself to pick them. I just can't. But I also want to win this competition. So I'm in a very tough situation here. Um, I'll go with the freaking Broncos. I think the Broncos will win this one 24-17. 24-13. I think the offense of the Chargers kind of good.
Yeah, I'll say the Chargers win this one. Uh, Played pretty decent last week. Think they're gonna, have that translate. Seems like the Broncos have lost all their momentum, and that's gonna continue. And I don't know if they're eliminated yet, but they're gonna have nothing to play for after this week. I don't really see the sense in making this sort of decision. I also don't see the sense in cutting a quarterback like Russell Wilson. Also, what that will do to them financially, I don't think it's smart, but obviously that's the risk they're willing to take. So, yeah, for me, I'm going to say the Chargers win this one by a score of 17-13. Uh, next week, next game, we have Cincinnati Bengals at the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, I bet when the NFL scripters was writing this one up, I bet they thought it was going to be a crazy matchup against Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. But unfortunately, neither of those quarterbacks are playing at the place where they want to be playing. One of them due to injury, of course, another one due to just lack of offensive pieces and just not looking right this year. Frankly, Patrick Mahomes in a losing situation is hard to root for. I think he doesn't have the sportsmanship that I thought he had, and is kind of off-putting in that sense, which is sad to say, but I think has shown his kind of true colors. And for me, he's not the leader that I thought he was, and I think that's gonna hurt. That's gonna give them hard time in the playoffs. But I think they should be able to win this one. So I think the Chiefs will win this pretty handedly. Kind of coming back from that bounce back loss against the Raiders in an embarrassing fashion on Christmas Day. So I have the Chiefs winning this one 26-17.
Yeah, I think the pressure is kind of rising right now on the Chiefs to just play better. I don't think there's any threat for them to lose a division or miss a playoff spot, of course, but I think they're just not anywhere near their standards right now. And, Travis Kelce was able to admit that this week as well. So just it goes throughout the whole team. Everybody's got to play to a higher standard. But I think in this one, they're going against a Cincinnati team that does commit turnovers. Jake Browning is, liable to, give the ball away. They'll have Jamar Chase back in this one, I believe, but I think the Chiefs are going to play inspired football, and the only reason I'm going to give them the edge is because they're at Arrowhead. Even though they lost last week, I just don't think it's happening back to back. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm going to pick 23-20. Chiefs win this one at home. Um, and then last game, Sunday Night Football, the Vikings and Packers.
I'm riding with my Packers. Just kidding. I'm riding with the Vikings this week. Looking to see how they're coming. I'm curious to see how Jared Hall performs, but in Flores we trust, and in KOC, I think that's one of the greatest head coach to DC combinations we have all year. I'm eager to see how they play against the Packers, but last time I think it was pretty dominant. I think we have um, the formula to stop their offense, and I don't think I think Alexander is also out for this game. So that's gonna inhibit their ability to stop JJ and all of our offensive weapons. So I think we'll have a better running attack this week as well. And I have the Vikings winning this one in a tight margin. Vikings will win this, I think, 21-20.
A lot of 21-20s for you.
Yep, that's the name of the game today.
All right, for me, I'll pick the Packers. Little bit of, gamesmanship here, a little bit of reverse psychology, if you will. I'll pick the Packers. Obviously I want the Vikings to win, but I'm gonna pick the Packers in this game just because let me think of a reason. Stability probably. I'll say stability because, obviously they've been around a little bit longer with Jordan Love and everything. I think Aaron Jones kind of been able to develop a little bit of a groove. Playoff hopes are slipping away, so they're gonna have to come in this game regardless of the circumstances surrounding Jair Alexander, and they're gonna have to come and play, tough football. And by no means has US Bank Stadium been a hard place to play at this year. Road teams have come in and road teams have won. So I'll
Yeah,
say the Packers win this one on Sunday Night Football, 24-20. Regrettably so, but I must do what I have to do. Um, and then the bold predictions. What do you have for your bold prediction week 17?
yeah. I have Christian McCaffrey going for 200 plus scrimmage, all-purpose scrimmage yards and 3 touchdowns. Big game.
Hey,
Fantasy winner.
is Lamar Jackson your MVP pick, or would you give consideration to, a non-quarterback like Christian McCaffrey?
I think I don't think so. I think Lamar will win this.
Okay. Uh, for me, my bold prediction is, as I said, it's going to come out that Saints game, but also will come out of that Sunday Night Football game. I'm going to say Chris Olave and Justin Jefferson will combine for 250 receiving yards on Sunday.
Who and who?
Chris Olave and Justin Jefferson will combine for 250
Ooh.
receiving yards on Sunday.
Hmm, interesting. That's a crazy combination. I just did not expect. Sorry.
Yeah.
You think that's gonna happen? Like, what? Can you give me a reasoning behind this? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah. So the passing defense of the Buccaneers is not great. And the same can be said for the Packers passing defense.
Mhm.
And in addition, the Vikings will be without TJ Hawkinson and potentially Jordan Addison. So I think more targets will be
Uh,
going to Justin Jefferson, and it could potentially lead to a big game for both of these guys. So yeah, for the Saints to put more analysis on them, I mean, Derek Carr's a gunslinger. He's gonna put Olave in opportunities to get big plays. So that's where I can see this
yeah,
happening.
yeah. Wow, that's interesting take. Curious to like. I didn't know you had that much confidence in Jaren Hall's throwing ability. So that's interesting. Good luck to you, my boy. You really need this one to hit. So it's I think you put some thought into it at least. So that's good.
Yeah. All this is a long shot for me, but got to put some thought into it to finish off the year strong.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I
but
went with almost every favorite except two picks where I just couldn't.
hey, got to do what you got to do, man. You only need what 30 points, right? So got to do what you
30
got to do.
points. Yeah,
Uh,
only 30
for
points, right?
only 30 points. I mean, for the lead, but you got some guy
Yeah.
right behind you, potentially could take that spot if they could get, there if you get to 180 after this week, then that means they're only 24 behind you. So,
Really?
yeah, because they're at 156 right now with one more week left. So you got to kind
Oh, they
of
have one more week left.
week 18.
Wow. Wow. I didn't know they had one more week left. I thought the guy who had one more week left was at 144.
He also has one more week left. So there's a guy 156 and
Oh, okay.
144. Yeah.
Oh, wow. 150. I thought I was the leader. Oh boy.
I mean,
Oh boy. I
you
might not win
gotta
this one.
you gotta kind of separate yourself a little bit. So 180 might not cut it, but
Wow.
we'll see. I mean, that'll put you in the lead for a week. It'll put you in the driver's seat for a week, but all that
Yeah.
matters is who is in the lead after week 18, right? So
Wow. 156 has been putting in work because I've been watching. He's been slowly progressing.
yeah, and they won
Shout
it
out to
last
him.
week too. He won it last week. I mean last year, the competition. So
Oh, did
it's
he?
pretty
Okay.
yeah, it's pretty good
I
at
think
this.
me and you had a pretty bad week last time we picked, if I remember correctly.
Hey
Maybe
man,
I did. I don't know about you.
I mean I always have bad weeks, so I'm trying to change the narrative a little bit surrounding my picks. So I'm not sure which week you're talking about, so uh
That's
but
that's hilarious.
yeah, that's everything for episode 77 that I got. Is there anything else you want to
Yeah.
touch up on?
Yeah, man, this is crazy because this is the last time I'll be on this season. So appreciate you having us on again. Just a great competition here. Get some of my takes on the NFL season. Enjoy watching the games with these picks in mind. So, super intriguing competition that you have set up here for us. So always just appreciation towards you and what you got going on here. Best of luck in the next couple of weeks and with your picks this week. And hopefully I'll be the one going to that Vikings game with you.
We'll see what happens. But yeah, potentially playoff episodes. I don't want to rule those out. We could have some playoff episodes, see what we can
Dope.
do with
Okay.
those as well. So, but yeah, as you said,
It would be
it's been
nice if
a
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
no, you're good. And I'd say I appreciate, your sentiment there. We'll see what happens with my picks this week, but regardless, definitely enjoyed having you on this year. A lot of good conversations we've had, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm super happy that the Ravens have proved me right this year. I'm not gonna lie, that was the one team that I really stuck my wagon to, and they proved me right. So shout out to them. But shout out to Lamar, MVP candidate, Super Bowl. Hopefully he wins that Super Bowl. That'd mean a lot to me as a Lamar fan from since he got drafted. So, but I just wanted to say, playoff podcast would be hella dope. If you, I think it would be really cool for me to hop on with those other guys as well. Maybe have like a larger
Yeah,
discussion with the crew. I would enjoy that. But yeah, let me know what you got planned for that. And yeah, I'm always eager to hop on.
definitely. I'm looking forward to it. So, yeah, episode 77 in the books, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.